Welcome to our webinar. The topics of the material that we're covering is pretty much laid out: working with bins, link or import, creating sequences, transitions, segment effects, title, and export. We will have about a 45 minute session. You might have maybe a couple of minutes at the end in the chat to ask some questions that are related to how we conduct classes. Without any further ado, I will jump into Media Composer 2021. If you're a novice to Media Composer, I will give you basic breakdown how the system starts. And if you're a user from earlier versions, or if you're a new user from 2019-6, you might find this interesting. Scenario: let's close Media Composer with quitting, which is Command Q on the Mac, and let's leave and start from scratch. You and I are going to be dealing with the Media Composer that I have installed. My version is, let me open it up. The Media Composer flavor I have is Media Composer Ultimate. And the Ultimate is giving you Symphony, Newscutter, Phrase Find, and Script Sync option. My version is 2021-3, which suggests that it is March 2021. You may have some earlier versions, but the identification is now based on a year and the month. So 2021.3 would suggest it is 2021 March. It takes about 15 to 20 seconds to open up the application. It looks around everything, which means that every drive and every monitor and any control surface should be already connected to it. So when the application kicks in, the ecosystem is set up. When you open up the Media Composer application program, you have an opening page that gives you an option of setting up who you are as a user. User basically is allowing you to set up customized keyboard settings, export settings, import settings, and things of that sort. So that might be something that you might want to consider. I'm going to use my existing one. The projects that you have already are listed, and you can actually move around, and you can identify their frame rate, aspect ratio, and raster size. If you want to start a new project in Media Composer, you activate your new project option. The location is obviously identified as internal or external, and you can identify that with a folder, so you can route your location physical placement with that folder. The name of it obviously is going to be always defaulted untitled, and here is where the options come in. The options are starting with standard definition, which is the National Television Standards Committee, which is what we use in these United States, 24 drop, 24 and 30, and then have PAL. And then we go into the high definitions, the small raster size, the 1280, 20, and the full raster size. This is where you need to decide what is going to be the frame rate of your project, what is going to be the aspect ratio, and the raster size. So if you're working for broadcast television in these United States, you're probably going to end up with a 2997, maybe 5994. If you're working for 4K environments, you have different flavors of it, and it gives you the pixel numbers. Or if you're working for television 4K, you will be working with Ultra HD. Highest resolution AVID handles right now is 16K, which is a huge amount of data. So if you start a brand new project, here's how you would go about it. You activate a new project, you can name it, I'll call it webinar. The spelling would be good to have. And I'm setting it up as a 1920 1080 running at 2997 frames. When you activate that, the creation tool comes in, kicks it in, and it opens up the interface. And the interface for you right now is going to be very simple. Any nonlinear editor environment contains a section where you see the footage that you are working with and the footage that you are adding it into. When I say working with, those would be the source materials, we call it source window, and the record window. Timeline is on the bottom, and the bin environment is on the upper left-hand corner. Upper left-hand corner, you already have a bin open. It looks like a drawer, which dynamically looks like it's open. So if I close it, you have a couple of options. One option will be close selected bins, and that's how you would close it. When you open it up, here are the two different ways of doing stuff in AVID. And this is very clear because AVID does name link, and activates it a certain different way than import, and import is import. So if you right click in the environment where you want to bring stuff in, the input option opens up the source browser, and the source browser allows you to have material available, and that could be a camera original or whatever you have. And on that environment or in the ecosystem, now you see I have footage that is in a folder called 007, James Bond. So select individually. Now, the cool thing here is that you can actually check them out, look at them. You can also look at them in text view, so you can see how big the file is, how long it is, duration, and so on. But visually, you are able to play them as if you are looking over the shoulder of AVID and you did not make the handshake yet. The handshake would be selecting a 5 number shots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You say they're going to link it on the bottom left, and then the window is the link. And you link it, and when the link is done, you are pretty much connected. That means that the computer is playing it as if it is already AVID ready. Double click goes in the source monitor, you can play it.
He doesn't want it. He doesn't want it.
That's the process of linking. Very simple.
Well,
there's no need to render.
We'll put it back on,
there's no need to transcode. There is no need to waste time or space, allocate space. You're reading it off the card. The other option, and this is the option that I will just show once because it takes time. So if you right click on it, input, you can start with the import if you want to. I find it much easier to go back into the source browser, because the source browser, I already established what am I looking at, camera originals, and I'm going to find a short clip so I don't waste too much of your time. The duration is set up, and I'm going to look for something that is 39 seconds, for example. Okay, so I activate that shot. I can change it back to picture view, and that particular shot that I activated, instead of linking, I will now import it, bottom left-hand corner, and I will define what is the compression. The compressions you are picking are dependent on what your environment is. If you're working in the Media Composer on a Windows, you're probably going to go in a DNX family. If you're working on a Mac, you could do ProRes or anything else that the company or you are comfortable with. Let's go with the ProRes because it's universal, 422, ProRes 422. And now you click on the import. The import will decide what hard drive it will generate that media. So it is basically translating camera speak to AVID speak, which is MXF, media exchange file format. Anyway, so let's put it onto the drive. So now you notice that it is taking some time. Therefore, importing by definition is taking time and takes space on your drive that is in the ecosystem. So this is basically the difference how AVID understands what link and import is. So when it is there inside the bin, you have a system where you can automatically save. I will not trust it, so I'm not going to wait for the 10-15 minute automatic save. I'm just going to do a command that save everything I recorded up to this point. That generates a backup. So now if I look at 736.5, it is a different icon compared to the icon that is the linked icon. So if I double click on it, it plays it back, and whatever I had, sound or picture. The same thing happens with the link stuff. The only difference is that the link stuff lives still on the card. And if you right click on, there should be an option where you can find out where it is living. And the reveal file tells you that it lives as a MOV file still in that 007. And if you right click the same way on the imported material, right click, reveal the file. There we go. And the reveal file says, now I am inside the AVID space media files MXF. So that is a definite proof that it is now MXF. So that's the first thing that I wanted to show you. That's the difference between importing and linking. I will move out of this project because I have something preset, so I need to move faster. Command-Shift-W leaves, not the application, but leaves the project. So by definition, you can only run one project at a time. So switches from whatever I had, get back. And I'm going to open up something that I pre-cut for you. It is called MC110 Parkour Instructor. Now, you see this designation 110. What does that mean? In the ecosystem of training, as we Future Media Concept have been doing it for many, many years, when you go on the FMC website, it gives you a list of courses. The courses I am now just quickly running through Media Composer. The Media Composers are broken down into days. So if you're interested in coming back to us, I hope you are. I'm sure there's other options out there. So you can pick and choose what your choices are. But these are the choices we can offer you. And it breaks down exactly what you will be getting, what are the durations of it. For all these classes, you will get books, materials, footage. The only difference is that you will be able to have exercise time, and I will guide you through it. So That being out of the way, let's close it so I don't have any kind of interference. I'm moving along, MC110 Parkour instructor. So let's find out what are the topics that we promised that we'll cover during this duration. So we are looking for bins. The bins are in Media Composer since 2019, 6 differently organized. They're magnetic. Everything is magnetic. If I have any need to have a separate bin, here are the ways to deal with it. Watch me. I'm going to look for a bin called webinar sequences, double click on it. I see what's inside it, but it is very tiny. So I need to switch between bins when I want to see other materials. So I double click in. So here's how AVID in 2019, 6 solved that. If you want to separate the particular one that I highlighted, you just tear it off and now it's separated. Now it's floating. And you can notice that you can resize it and you can make it bigger. You have still the 3 views that you're familiar with if you are an AVID user from before. Text view, frame view, and then you have the script view. Text view, obviously, if the monitor that you're looking at is small. If the fonts are too small, in the Windows drop down, you have a set font and you can make them bigger so it's easier to read. That's one. The picture issue is a different deal. You need to have bigger pictures. So how do you make the pictures bigger? The easiest way to do that, click inside the environment and Command L increases the size of those pictures. Command K brings them back. If you're Windows, it's Control L, larger, and Control K makes them smaller. Okay, reduce frame. So here's the shortcut for the reduce frame and the enlarge frame. The size is obviously limited to what your window displays. My window is 1920 1080. When I say window, I'm referring to the system preferences. The playback is actually larger because I have a 5K, so I have 2048 pixels by 1152 as opposed to 1600 or something smaller. So you can see that you can change the scaling of your monitor. With that out of the way. So how you manipulate the bins is very simple. You can grab them, open it up, and tear it off. When you say tear it off, you find out which is the active one. It highlights itself, it identifies it. If I'm in a specific bin and I want to know what that bin is, I'd like to color it. So when I color something that looks like this, pick the color and I'm going to pick it, let's say yellowish color. So it's a yellowish color. The yellowish color shows up in the bin as well on the tab. So on the tab, I can say that's the tab I dragged it down. But this is encroaching on my real estate. When I say real estate, I am referring to managing materials so things are being covered. So how does one deal with that? Here is how AVID came up with that. I'm going to close all the bins. Last, so everybody, Command A is also a Control A if you're a window user. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to have all those, not delete, close the bins. So I have all of them closed. Let's start opening up one. Here's one opened. And this one has the sequence that you and I will be working with. So put that in the timeline. If I'm looking for material for additional pictures, go open up Parkour footage, open it up. But remember, we talked about the coloring. So the Tennessee is yellow, the sequence is not. So right click on the sequence and make that color different, maybe like a bluish color, like a turquoise. Now, these two bins are not really split. My attention is only focused on one of them at one time. I cannot split the window unless I do the following. And this is really cool. If you have seen this, you know it. If you haven't, this is how AVID does, other than taking it off, which means that you are now encroaching on other areas of real estate. So let me show you how I am going to address that. I'm going to split the window by holding down nothing, just move to the left side. So I'm vertically splitting the window. If I want to split it horizontally, here's a horizontal. Very simple, very logical. Click on the X area and bring it down to the lower area. There we go. So now I split it horizontally. And this is where you can get your management of space organized properly. Clearly, everything is still magnetic. You have a number of presets, and those presets come from the window workspaces in the past, window drop-down workspaces. Look at the right side. I have a color. I have a effects, and I have a audio editing preset. If you want to customize your material, meaning your real estate, your interface visually, here's how you can do that. Make sure that the windows are kind of nicely organized. And if you have this as a setup and you're happy with it, in the Windows drop-down workspaces, new workspace. This is going to be new workspace. We'll call it webinar. And now it shows up on the side. So I have the original, I have the color upper right side, the effects, the audio, and the webinar. So these are the tools that you can work with. How does one create a sequence? Let's move on to that. So this is working with the bins. Clearly, there's much more to it, but this is just the time that I have available in order to cover everything I need to cover. So let's go into how one creates a sequence. There is multiple ways of doing that. The upper right-hand corner of this environment is known as the record monitor, and the upper left-hand corner of this composer environment is known as the source monitor. So let's clear the record monitor. Let's clear the menu. Clearing the monitor and clearing the menu are two different things. Clearing the monitor means that if I have, let's say, multiple shots in the source monitor, I can switch between them and look at them individually. So that's very logical. If I want to take out one of them out and I don't want to see that, I can clear the monitor. So there's nothing in the monitor. Essentially, think about you have a DVD player, and on the top of that, you have 4 DVDs. Well, those 4 DVDs are still on the top. They were not cleared the menu yet. So if you clear the menu, those are gone. So now it's empty. The maximum of clips you can put into a bin is about 20. So if you select all of these guys and you throw them in, they all go in there, but it will be the last 20 there where you can count it. So if you're working on material and you have 20 shots, that's fine. You can move back and forth. So how does one create a sequence? That is the question again. I like this one, and see if this makes sense to you guys. I am a very firm believer that simplicity is really the way to go about it. And because this is a visual environment, say hello to your new friends called the clips. Now, remember earlier, we talked about how you can make an environment bigger, smaller. At this point, the source and record is irrelevant. I just need to organize my clips. In text view, you have alphabetic, numeric stuff. You can actually start time code, durations, and all the other metadata that you can use to set up things. I am looking for visual things. So I am one of those guys who likes to drag and drop. And I'm sure you heard that drag and dropping is a cool thing. So I'm going to select a whole bunch of shots that I don't need. I'm not taking them out of the bin. I just move them around. So I'm going to select shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, these 6 shots are a specific length, a specific content. And in order for me to make sure that nobody else use their markings or whatever they had in there, I'm going to lasso all 6 of these guys. On a keyboard, I'm going to hit home button, and I'm going to quickly show you where that home button is. Open up my user settings, which is Command, comma. And on the K keyboard, this is the home button. Get to start, go to start. It essentially goes to the first frame of the environment that you're on. Go to end. So with that, I will highlight all those, hit home. They all go to the first frame, not one, all of them. So you see I'm switching between first frame, last frame. And if I had my colleagues edit with this material in the past and they have left some in and out points, hit G, clears it out. And now I just drag it in the timeline and I have a sequence done. And if you like it, you are happy. If you don't like it, you can always redo it. Now you notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots. They came in the sequence that I selected. So that's your fastest and easiest way of creating a sequence. How much of the material brought in? It's irrelevant. I brought in the entire footage. And it identifies itself as untitled sequence. When you're done with that sequence, you can take it out. Here's a second way of doing the sequence. And this is where your style comes in. I would like to put in a whole bunch of clips. It gives me a warning, so it doesn't automatically delete. I have to identify it, I have to choose it, and then I have to physically okay it. So that's how the system is giving you all these backups. Anyways, if you want to bring in a storyboard sequence like I just did earlier, you can again rearrange them any way you want it, or you can just right-click in the environment, fill the window, and select all of them, Command A, and drag them in the timeline. Now you have something we call a string out. So all the shots that you have in the story are in. But that still gives you the drag and drop. I told you I'm going to show you a different way of doing that. So this sequence is, again, not something that I care about. Clearing it up right-hand corner, clear monitor, clear menu. Let me show you a different way. So I'm going to drag a whole bunch of shots into the source monitor. Individually, you can identify mark in with I on the keyboard. Let's say the guy drops down somewhere just before he drops down, mark in I. 1, 2, 3, 4 starts running out. Okay. I don't really care the duration. Well, if I want to find out, it tells me it's 3 seconds and 13 frames, but I can drag it from that source monitor in the timeline. I can also hit the splice in button, and the splicing button is V on the keyboard. So if I splice it in, that's it, that shot is in. What other shots do I have? Well, let's see what this shot is. I need to have the guy do something. So he starts running. Just before he starts running, mark out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it, he did the jump. And because I'm already at the end of the sequence, end of the shot, end of the frame that made the first sequence, I can just splice and add or move to it. So now I have 2 shots, shot 1, shot 2. Very simple, very easy. You can still do a drag and drop from the bin. Now, if I define command comma in the user preferences, if I open up the user preferences and I'm looking for the bin setting, in the bin setting, I have a choice to save automatically backups and everything, but that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an option to enable from the bin using the splice and override button. That option will allow me to use these buttons that I just showed you, the splice and override, which on the keyboard do look like V as Victor and B as Bravo, that being the default keyboard. Keep that in mind that it's customizable. So if I have nothing in the monitor, but I want to bring in stuff from the bin, I generally start with the first clip. And after that, if I click on the second one and do the V, it brings it in. It should bring it in. Go down the road and it click on it and brings it in. You notice that I don't see what's in my bin. So it is not a bad idea to see what clip comes in. So if I want to have that big yellow wall, click on the shot, hit V, and that big yellow shot comes in. If I am at the end of the story, no marking, no nothing, guys, no nothing. If I see the guy running, which guy? Command L, I can always hit the clip and play it in the bin. There we go, that comes in. This was rewound. Bottom line is that you can either drag, which is physically drag and drop anything you want to anywhere you want to, or use your tool, which I just showed you, the splice and override. So that takes care of that put together. The next one, transitions and motion effects. I already have a preset sequence and it contains a number of edits. Please listen and watch it. I'm going to play it full screen. Command Shift F, full screen, and comes out. Now, clearly the titles were bothering you. You can turn it off, so the monitoring is only going to be on the lower layer. But essentially, this sequence is pre-cut, and let's say that you agree with how it was cut. You just need to add some transitions. Generally, people don't put that on one sequence. So Command D duplicates the sequence. I'm going to call it web version 1. You just made a duplicate of the sequence containing everything. Command that saves it, double click, put that in there. You know that it's in the timeline because the upper right-hand corner identifies upper right, and it says web version 1. And whatever titles I had on that one, I will take out. If I have the command /, it should give me the entire timeline. There we go. Command /, bottom left-hand corner is a whole bunch of zoom options. And the zoom option that I just showed you was that show the entire sequence, command /. So that's how I see the entire timeline. I don't really need the titles in this one. Do I have it in the original? Yeah, but in the web, I don't need that. It doesn't interfere with me, but I just want to show you how the transition and motion effects will be working. Therefore, I select video 2, nothing on audio 1, and hit delete. The delete option will ask me, are you sure you want to delete that track? Delete the track. Now, here I come. Because this is an interesting environment. When I say interesting environment, there is an action where the music is dictating what's going on. So there's beats on it, and I maybe want to try to match beat. That's going to be in trimming, but right now I would like to have some kind of a effect between each of the cuts. And AVID gives you a variety of choices in the family of called quick transition. Now, the quick transition is a family of effects that consists of dissolve, film dissolve, film fade, fade to color, fade from color, dip to color, and 3D depth of field. I will use the dip to color because the dip to color is a default dip to black. It is default 1 second. It is the duration that is preset, unless you want to change it, and you can actually type in a number and make it, let's say, 12 frames. So it's in the center, and I add it, and if you look at it, it is a nice dip to black. If you want to apply the dip to black to every transition, let's say halfway, here's a simple way to do that. Mark in I on the keyboard and put a blanket over the area that you think that you want to add dissolve between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, and so on. So if you want to park on the first transition, doesn't have to be anything there. You can take it off with the, we call it the Ghostbuster remove effect. So go back again to the quick transition. In the quick transition now, a new option showed up. Apply to all transitions between into out. And that does not show up unless you have the into out. So the into out has to be put on the blanket, and you define what is the range that you're going to manipulate and add these, in this case, dissolves or dip to colors. So in this case, I'm going to add a dip to color to all transitions into out. When I add them, everybody gets it. G clears the into out. Watch the full show. Command Shift F, full screen, dip to black. So essentially, wherever I had a transition, it made the change. And that was a very fast way of doing that. Here is a way to get rid of these transitions. One option is that if you get individually, you can click on your friend at the remove effect. So identify and remove it. You can go back individually. You can also globally remove them. Command Z, undo, undo. Globally removing requires that you go into effects mode. And effects mode would allow you either to floating effects. Why? Because this floating effect is floating effect. The real effect kicks out the source monitor like this. So now everything is in there. When you go into effects mode, either way, you can individually hold down Shift and non-consecutively select which is the ones that you want to delete. Or you can hold down Option and lasso, and all the transitions that contain an effect will be now selected. Hitting delete, you get rid of all of them. If I add a dissolve, the dissolves by definition are nice effects, and they are cool and they are happy and nice, but dissolve in this case is not dynamic enough. It's kind of more passing time. I need more dynamic, like maybe a white flash or something along those lines. White flash, got it. So the white flash is definitely a tool that you have seen a lot of people use. I generally see people starting with a dip to color, and dip to color in this case is dip to 7.5 black, which is the broadcast black. So you apply it to that particular one. Now the black is not white, so you need to change it, or any color, doesn't matter which color. If you go into the effects editor, the effects editor identifies that you are clicking and picking the black as the background color. So if you double click on the box, you have a whole bunch of choices, and the choice I'm going to grab is a nice kind of yellowish. So I'm going to dip to yellow. I identify it, I okay it, and the effect icon in the upper left-hand corner tells me that I'm a dip to color. Remember, we said that we have a bin. A bin stores not just sequences, not just information about a clip, it stores also presets. So this dip to color can be set up as a preset. Watch it, put it into the bin. And now that's going to be a dip to yellow. So now I have a, not TL, yellow. I have a yellow dip to color, which is a preset command that saves it. I can manually now drag that either of these transitions, and they will be dip to yellow, like so. I could, and this is again a quick jump into effects editing, select in effect editing the transitions, hold down Option, select all of them that I highlighted. And because all those transitions are selected in the bin that I have the T preset, double click, all of them get it now. So all of them are now getting that dip to yellow. Watch it and see if that makes sense. So you created a template first, you save that template into a bin, and now it's available to manipulate and add into your work area. And that's that. Now the coolest thing, and this is where the things get really cool, I'm going to create a brand new bin. The bin has to be called Quick Transitions. Okay, the quick transitions bin has to be separate, and in this case, I'm going to separate split it. I'm going to go back into where I had the effect, and I'm going to grab that effect and put it into a bin called quick transitions. Keep that in mind. It's now in quick transitions bin. By definition, that bin, if it is labeled and named exactly like I have it, watch me what I'm saying. So I'm going to go back into the effect and take off all the effects so you don't think that I'm coming up with some goofy stuff. There we go, nothing in there. Now, next time I go into the quick transition, the tool that I just tested earlier now has additional tool. That's the yellow. Oh, so it is now custom stuff, but it has to be in a bin. Otherwise, the computer doesn't recognize it. So if you have a bin called quick space transitions and you put transitions in that, it will be recognized. In my case, that is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to have park on in between, go into the quick transition, open up and add the effects from the transitions bin and apply to all of them. And that's your fastest way to have things on command that saves it. The coolest thing since sliced bread. So let's see what else we have. So we have the transition, motion effects. Motion effect is going to be really cool for you because motion effect is my favorite. I have a clip, guys jumping over some kind of walls and brick things and all this stuff. So I'm going to slow it down. Here's how the AVID deals with it. Nobody does this real time like these guys. Absolutely mind-boggling when I saw it first time, way back. It's called time warp effect. The time warp effect has a couple of choices, trim to fill, freeze frame, and so on, but I'm looking for time warp effect that I'm going to stop the guy, stop the air, move back in air, and he's going to be continuing jumping. So here's how it works. This is time warp effect. This is a speed effect. It's a real-time effect. Effects doesn't work in a full effect, so you have to floating, and I have a running man. So here's the running man. The running man identifies that I'm going at 100% speed. So I'm going to have the guy 100% speed, and you see this guy who's jumping right over the brick wall there. I'll stop him in the air, and I'll make him go down to 0%, which is freeze frame. Now, for some reason, the computer doesn't freeze automatically, so I need to set up the algorithmic interpolation so it instantly stops. There we go. I will hold him frozen there for a while, and then I'm going to go backwards. So he's going to go backwards in time. Watch it, froze it, and he goes back. Mind-boggling, real time. That's straight crazy. And the keyframe decides what is the time and what is the position. So the keyframe tells me I'm minus 88%, or I can go and have him go faster. So if I go faster, and that's what the time is. The time warp is really powerful, real time, highly recommended. What I had in the record monitor, I'm going to continue to work with that. Here is the next element. The next element is segment effect. I will make the entire show black and white. That's something that we have seen. And it could be either one segment or multiple segments. One segment would be simply upper left-hand corner where the effects are. Go into the family called image. Go into the color effect, put it onto the top of that clip. And in the effects editing, you bring down the saturation on that clip that I parked on. So now it's black and white. But that is only one segment. So how do you make it the entire show black and white? Very simple. So I'm going to use the remover, and that's now off. Command Y adds another video track, guys. Same thing, same scenario, same premises, and the same premise. When I say premise, I am referring to going into the effects family, and the effects family, pick the color effect, which was in the effects family that you and I just found earlier. Hello. It is color effect. And I'm going to put it onto second track. And the color effect is going to apply everybody. When I have the system set up that I would like to color things, here's the floating effect. Make it black and white, bring the saturation down. If I increase the brightness and contrast, I can come up with some interesting stuff. And something that we have done in many, many shows, push the red a little bit, take away the blue, and make it sepia tone. Let's play it full screen, go home, Command-Shift-F. The entire show is now sepia tone or sepia tone. Okay, last element. You add another video track generally. That's how you start, which is Command-Y. Title is now an effect. And you will notice that when I go into the effect, the title is showing up as a separate entity on the bottom, and you can drag it onto the second layer. So the title shows up. And it doesn't give you any defaults. So you need to physically click inside and activate thank you. Now, the reason why I don't see it is because I'm not monitoring the second track. So if I monitor the second track, there we go, there is thank you. It's not the proper spelling, but let's do it properly. And that is what my thank you is. I grab that entire element. When I say element, grab it and position it somewhere in the center. And the last element that needs to come out now is if you're ready to export. The export features are very simple. Right-click in the record monitor. Somewhere in the middle is an export dropdown. I am using version of the operating system Mojave. That's when I can do this. In the newer version, in the Catalina, you may not have the QuickTime movie option. So keep that in mind. I'm going to export as a QuickTime. I define what is going to be the size of it. And the size of it is set up to be a 320, 180 small. So I can share it, I can send it to email. And when I save it, I'll put it on a desktop. I'll say it for you guys, for you. I'll put it on a desktop so I can find it because I need to check it. Hit save. It takes probably less than 15, 20 seconds. Okay, Command S save everything. Command H hides the media composer. And on the desktop, I should have that QuickTime. Double click, hello, open it up. There we go, there's the QuickTime. I can make it bigger so you can see it, but it pixelates it because it is a small 320 by 180. So you created something, quick reference, and you can send it to your friends. I don't think that 320 is going to be good enough. So probably 1287, 20. So if you send something to your friends, I would recommend. I was rushing. You had to understand that. I hope you did. If you had a good time, please let us know. Please come back to us. As I said, we are Future Media Concept. We are now worldwide because everything is internet, everything is Zoom. So if you want to take some classes, you can come on our site, FMC training and a whole bunch of sites. We have other applications, other programs to deal with, but this was the AVID Media Composer. So I hope you had a good time. Okay, guys, good luck. I appreciate you stopping by and looking at what we have here at FMC in AVID. If you are working in episodic television, if you end up working for networks, AVID is the game. So I thank you very much. Time is up. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you for attending. Good luck to you guys. And again, thank you. My name is Tibor and my time is up.